What's up, Dragon Brood? So today we're going to be talking about Mardu Humans that happens to be a party deck. And this is, I don't know, like deck 10 or something of the decks we're putting out leading up to Zendikar. So we're going to be putting out decks every single day, multiple times a day, while we're waiting for the release of Zendikar Rising. So if you find something you like, great, you can download it and have it ready to go. Or if you decide later that you want to build a deck, feel free to come back and look at one of these videos, download the deck, and now you have something that you can start from. And I want to say, yes, these are going to be experimental. Yes, we're going to be trying different cards. We don't know how everything's going to work because we haven't played with the new cards yet. So chill in the comments. We know we're experimenting here. But these are starting points for a lot of decks until we get to play with them and clean them up. But before we take a look at this deck, as usual, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you, if you haven't, please hit the like button to help us get in front of more people. Then hit that subscribe button, because then that lets me know you appreciate all this work I'm doing. And finally, hit the notification bell, because that's for you. That lets you know every time I have a new video up, especially right now, if you're looking for ways to maximize your cards and know what you need to be building in Zendikar Rising. But now that you've done all that, let's go take a look at this Mardu Humans Party deck. It's weird calling a deck a party deck, but that's what we've got. Let's go take a look at it. Okay, so starting at the top here, we're playing 4 copies of Archpriest of Iona. Now this card's actually pretty cool because it does get larger and gain flying for some unknown reason. I guess because he's swinging around on the rocks and spelunking or something. I don't know. But gets flying, gets larger for each creature you have in your party, and we do have a way to meet the party requirements, so you're very often going to have this be a 2 or a 3 power when it's going into attack, which is nice for 1 mana. Very hard to beat that. And we're going to play a couple of fight as 1, mostly because we want a way to protect our creatures. Now everything in here is a human, so we're not going to get both sides of it, but even being able to protect 1 creature could be very nice, especially if you're protecting one of the legendary creatures in this deck. We're going to go ahead and play 4 copies of Acquisitions Expert. This is a card that I think people are really high on or really low on. Personally, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think in a deck like this, where you can get to see 3 or 4 cards whenever you cast it, turns out really good, but in decks where you can only see 1 or 2, it's not much better than other discard spells. So I'm hoping here, more often than not, we're going to be looking at 3 cards when we cast it against the opponent and get the card we want to look at, especially if you cast it on turn 3, turn 4, where you get to see the remaining cards in their hand. You increase the odds of getting rid of the card that you want to remove from their hand, which is really powerful. Now, we are only playing 3 copies of Kargan Intimidator. I was thinking about Skargan Hellkite that just rotated out. But this card does happen to be a human, and it's a warrior, so it does fit our whole theme mechanic here with humans. And there is an off chance that you get to use the other abilities and have them be important, but it is a way to keep attacking efficiently with a 3 power creature for 2 that can be pumped up by other things in the deck we're going to see here in a little bit. Seasoned Hollowblade, there was no way we were not going to play 4 of these. I mean, it is a warrior, so it does get benefited from the Intimidator being in the list. Also, it's just damn hard to kill. Being able to discard a card and just have it stay alive is pretty strong. And when you combine this with Fight as 1, where you can discard a card to protect this and protect another creature, it's very possible that even if your opponent tries to cast something like Shatter the Sky, you're still going to have 6 or 8 power worth of creatures on the table the next turn. That can still end the game very abruptly. So don't take that for granted. We're playing 4 Luminarch Aspirant. You've seen this in some of our other lists that we put up. This card is actually very good. It's kind of unassuming. It's a cleric, but it is putting a +1/+1 on a creature every turn. And when you have something like the Archpriest that's able to fly, that's a big deal. Or whenever you're able to put it on something like the Intimidator, where you can make something unblockable, or even putting it on the Seasoned Hollowblade that's just hard for your opponent to deal with and kill. So there's a lot of places you could put the counters that would be very good. We're playing a full set of Dire Tactics as our removal card of choice. With all of our creatures being human, we're never going to be taking the damage from this. And it also exiles a card. That's the other thing. I think people look at this as a kill card sometimes and just forget that it does exile. So if you're worried about Uros or things like that, it's able to get those out of the game so you don't have to deal with them anymore. And it's an instant. So lots going for it. We're only playing 2 copies of Ardent Electromancer here, and it's partially because it's a wizard, but partially because the mana could matter. When you're talking about playing this and then maybe getting 3 or 4 mana back and having something like Tazri that you can cast, or maybe even one of the other cards we have coming up with the colorless mana you can spend toward it, this is very often going to allow you to play 2 or maybe even 3 cards in a turn on the turn that you cast it. And it's also a 3-power creature, so it's nothing to turn your nose up at. It's actually very effective. Then we've got 3 General Kudro, because honestly, it pumps all your humans. There's really not much else to say, other than the fact that it does also allow you to remove stuff from the graveyard again. So there are going to be a few decks with some of the cards from Zendikar Rising that are going to be focusing on things in the graveyard. There's also stuff like Uro that still exists. So you want to be able to remove those things, and this gives you multiple ways to do that. So between that and the Dire Tactics, you should be pretty well protected from the problem cards, whether that's like Uro or Kroxa or any of the Lurrus type decks that you're worried about them playing stuff back out of the graveyard or reanimating it. These are going to be your answers to solve a lot of that. We're playing 2 Sanctuary Lockdowns. And this is a card that I think goes overlooked a lot, but again, it pumps all your humans, which everything in here is a human. But it can also just help you win the game. You know, during the opponent's end step, you tap down a couple of their creatures. Cool, now you get to attack with all those things you used to tap their stuff down. Or maybe you kind of combo it up where you end up tapping down 2 or 3 things on your turn. You play like a Dire Tactics and kill something, or maybe even General Kudro to remove something, and then you go ahead and attack, and that's going to end the game as well. So lots of stuff going on with this deck with a lot of these extra cards you don't get to see a lot of action from. We're playing 2 Baudry's Lieutenant. Not going too heavy on these because we don't have a ton of +1/+1 counters. We will be getting some from the Aspirant, obviously, but it is a quality over all-around card, and it is a human. Unfortunately, it's a knight, so it's one of the few cards that doesn't really trigger our party mechanics, but it seems okay because of what it's doing for the deck and the size that it brings to the table. And then we're playing 3 Tazri Beacon of Unity. And this card's really, really good, y'all, in a deck like this. It's very possible that on turn 3, you're playing this for 4 or even 3 mana, depending on how the game goes. I say that really. I guess on turn 3, the best you could do is for 4. But every turn after that, it's very possible you can play it for less. And you do have all the different party members, so it's very possible that you could... I mean, we only have a couple of wizards, but you could potentially play it for 1. More often, you're going to be playing it for 2. But it is a 4/6 creature, and this is one of the best cards you can have to recover after a board sweeper. You can just start looking for 2 creatures, 2 creatures, 2 creatures, and you're going to have a bunch of targets. So you should be able to reload your hand pretty well after this comes onto the table. And it is a warrior, so remember that. It means it does work with the Intimidator as well. Now, looking at lands, this is probably the most normal land base of any of the decks we've built so far, so we're playing just straight up 23 land, which when you look at the top, we don't have that many expensive cards. There's a ton of 1s and 2s. I mean, you got to get all the way to the Electromancer before we hit a 3-mana card, so we're not really worried about 23 lands. And we get very fortunate playing this because we get the pathway that has black and white, you get the other pathway that has white and red, then you also get Temple of Triumph. And honestly, I believe if we wanted to, there's also a Mardu Triome we could play as well, but we're trying to minimize the number of tap lands in this list. And we don't need a ton of red, actually. We only need, if we get 1, that's plenty. We only have 5 red cards. Now, once we get into a regular season, we may have some extra sideboard cards that matter. May even be cases where we want more Electromancers potentially, and then we'll have to worry about that. But currently, we have enough red sources. We shouldn't be hurting too much. I do need to switch one of these mountains, I believe, one of the plains for a mountain. So I will do that in the final list, just to increase the odds that if something were to happen and you drew one of these Fable passages, you would be able to get the red mana that you want. I have to admit, when I put this list together, I wasn't sure how it was kind of shaping and coming around, but actually looks like a reasonably effective deck, and it's kind of like a humans deck just amped up because you get some benefits from things caring about party, which not a lot. I think we have like 3 cards that reference party, but that's totally fine. because we're not having to stretch to play the other pieces to make it work. I think that's where the party mechanic is going to trap some people, is they're going to build decks trying to squeeze things in to, I guess, meet that party requirement, and they're going to be playing just lesser cards that don't do enough to help the deck along the road and the path of what it's trying to do. And here, I feel like we just got to play good creatures, some of them that even work well with each other, and happen to fill out our party requirements, which is very nice. So what do I think about it? Don't know yet. I'll be interested in playing this one for sure, just to see how it works out, because it's the first time we've tried something like this. I mean, if I were playing just humans, I may have taken it a different route, but this is pretty cool and it opens the door for a few things. We do have some different ways to remove creatures, which is pretty nice. We have some creatures with evasion, which we like. And we have a creature that even lets us recover and just draw more creatures, which is also pretty fantastic. So it's got a little bit of everything, kind of in that mid-range level. Maybe we should be playing some Demonic Embrace or something of that nature, but that remains to be seen. But for now, if you haven't, please remember to like this video to help us out and get in front of more people. Hit that subscribe button to just show me some love, and then hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I have one of these deck lists up, because we're going to be putting them out multiple times a day leading up to the Zendikar Rising release. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.